The cold in Maplewood seemed more intense that Christmas. Ethan looked out of the window of the small apartment, at the lights flickering on the neighboring houses and the distant sound of children playing in the snow. But inside there was only silence. The silence that had once seemed like a sentence now had a different weight, a call. Something was about to change. As the nights grew longer and the days lonelier, Ethan began to notice something curious. There were patterns, moments that had gone unnoticed before, but now seemed charged with meaning. He felt as if the isolation was revealing something about himself, something that connected him to a greater purpose. It was then that he realized solitude was not a punishment, but an initiation. He began to discover the 9 powers of the chosen, gifts that could only be awakened in introspection and silence. These powers were not merely practical skills. They were spiritual and emotional forces that would transform his life forever. "I need to understand this," Ethan whispered to himself, feeling a growing determination. Now, let's discover, together with Ethan, the 9 powers of the chosen and how they shaped his journey. The first power began to manifest itself on an ordinary day at work. During a tense meeting, Ethan faced harsh criticism from his boss. On other occasions, he would have been nervous, perhaps even angry. But this time, something inside him changed. He felt the anger rising up, but instead of losing himself in it, he was able to observe it from afar. It was as if he was watching the scene from outside. His mind cleared, and he responded calmly, leaving everyone in the virtual room impressed by his serenity. From that moment on, Ethan realized that he had developed what he called glacial force, absolute control over his emotions. This power didn't mean repressing what he felt, but understanding and mastering his reactions. He likened it to being in the eye of a hurricane. Chaos swirled around, but in the center, there was peace. This ability began to manifest itself in various areas of his life. When something went wrong, such as an unexpected problem in traffic or a conflict in the market, he remained calm, analyzing the situation clearly. Ethan understood that the Ice Force not only helped him deal with the world around him, but also prepared him for bigger challenges. "If I can master my emotions," he thought, "I can face anything." A few days later, Ethan went to the market to buy ingredients for his lonely Christmas dinner. As he walked through the aisles, something unusual happened. He noticed a woman picking apples. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but something about her movements caught his attention. She was hesitant, as if carrying an invisible weight. Her smile at the employee was kind, but her eyes told another story. Ethan felt a wave of sadness emanating from her, something that most people wouldn't notice. It was then that he realized he had developed expanded vision, the gift of seeing beyond appearances. It was as if his soul had been given a new lens, allowing him to grasp truths that were hidden beneath the surface. Ethan began to notice this power at other times. When he was in casual conversation, he could sense what people really meant, even if they didn't use words. When he walked down the street, he noticed subtle signs in his surroundings that he hadn't seen before, like little patterns of synchronicity that seemed to guide him. This gift not only connected him more deeply to people, but also helped him make better decisions. He could discern which paths to take and who to trust. This vision is a gift and a responsibility, thought Ethan. He knew he couldn't ignore what he saw. He needed to act with compassion and wisdom. As the expanded vision gave Ethan a deeper insight into the world, another power began to emerge: crystal clarity. One morning, while organizing his accounts and reflecting on how to reorganize his life, he noticed something remarkable. The mess of papers and numbers that had previously confused him now seemed simple. He knew exactly what he needed to do, as if an inner voice was guiding him every step of the way. Crystal clarity was the ability to make quick and effective decisions, without hesitation or doubt. Before, he used to get lost in thought, worrying about the consequences of each choice. But now, his mind seemed to work with impeccable precision, like a finely tuned machine. This power began to manifest itself in moments of pressure. When a situation required a quick solution, Ethan could identify the right path almost instantly. He realized that this wasn't just a practical gift, it was a manifestation of his inner connection to something greater. Clarity brought a new confidence to his life. He began to act with more purpose, without fear of making mistakes, knowing that every decision was part of a bigger plan. As the days went by, Ethan noticed a fourth gift awakening within him: the pain sensor. He realized that he could feel the pain of others in a way he had never experienced before. One day, when he met a co-worker who seemed fine, Ethan felt a pang of sadness as he approached. He knew something was wrong, even if the colleague didn't say a word. This power, although challenging, was profoundly transformative. Ethan understood that his ability to feel the pain of others was not a burden, but a gift. He could offer support and compassion in a way that no one else could. The world is full of suffering, he thought, but maybe my role is to alleviate some of it. After weeks of immersion in his solitude, Ethan began to notice something peculiar. He no longer saw time as an enemy. Before, silence and long hours seemed like an unbearable burden. But now, every solitary moment became an opportunity. Thus was born the alchemy of time, the ability to transform time alone into something precious, like an alchemist transforms lead into gold. It was on a particularly cold day, while organizing his small space, that Ethan realized the depth of this transformation. Before, he had procrastinated simple tasks, but now every action seemed charged with purpose. He arranged his shelf as if he were organizing his own mind. Each book put in order symbolized an aligned thought. Each drawer tidied up represented a part of his soul being reorganized. He also began to dedicate himself to practices he had never tried before. Meditation, reflective writing, and even silent walks through the snowy forest became his moments of connection with the divine. Every minute spent looking inwards was a small victory against the chaos that the outside world tried to impose. "I'm not wasting my time," thought Ethan on one of these walks. "I'm building something inside myself." The alchemy of time allowed Ethan not only to accept his loneliness, but to use it as a tool for growth. He began to realize that the time he spent alone was actually a gift, a rare opportunity to refine his soul and his purpose. Every day he felt stronger and better prepared to face the world, not as someone who just survives, but as someone who thrives. One night, while reading by candlelight, Ethan felt something he would never forget. It was as if the air around him was vibrating differently. There was no perceptible sound or movement, but he knew with an unshakable certainty that something was there. This was the beginning of his experience with energy fusion, the gift of connecting deeply with the invisible energies that permeate the world. This ability didn't come about in a grandiose way, but as a silent whisper, a keen intuition that guided his steps. At first he thought he was imagining things, but the more he paid attention, the more he realized that this connection with the invisible was real. That same evening, he decided to light another candle and meditate, concentrating on his breathing. As his mind quietened, he felt an enveloping presence, almost as if he were being welcomed by something greater. It was as if the universe, in all its vastness, was speaking directly to him, not in words, but in a language of pure energy. This connection began to manifest itself at other times. When he entered an environment, he could immediately sense the prevailing energy. Whether it was tense or welcoming, negative or positive, Ethan knew before he even spoke to anyone. This sensitivity helped him avoid unnecessary conflicts and align himself with the right situations and people. The energy fusion also brought a sense of inner peace. Knowing that he was connected to something bigger gave Ethan an unshakable confidence in his path. He felt that, even in the most challenging moments, he was not alone. The energy of the universe flowed through him, guiding and protecting him. One of the biggest surprises Ethan experienced was the awakening of the silent language. He began to realize that words were often unnecessary. It was as if his presence, his gaze, and even his gestures conveyed more than he could ever express verbally. He first noticed this in a chance encounter with an elderly neighbor, Mr. Wallace, who had just lost his wife. Ethan went to visit him with a simple apple pie, thinking to offer some consolation. But when he got to the door, he realized he didn't need to say anything. He just handed over the pie and stood there in silence while Mr. Wallace shed tears. That moment marked Ethan deeply. Without exchanging any meaningful words, he felt that he had created a powerful connection with his neighbor. Mr. Wallace smiled through his tears and simply said, "Thank you, Ethan." That was more than enough. This gift also manifested itself in more subtle moments. Ethan realized that, in meetings or gatherings, he could communicate his empathy or support with just a look or a small gesture. His presence said what words could not. He understood that silent language was actually the art of conveying authenticity and truth through energy and behavior. This ability made him an exceptional listener. People felt comfortable around him, sharing their most intimate stories, knowing that he would understand them without judgment. And he, in turn, used this connection to help, heal, and inspire. The morning after one of his most introspective nights, Ethan looked out of the window of the small cabin where he was living and felt that something inside him was different. The snow-covered landscape looked familiar, but he knew that inside, he was no longer the same man who had arrived there weeks ago. It was at this moment that he began to understand the gift of internal metamorphosis. This power, he realized, was not a superficial transformation, but a deep, slow, and continuous renewal. Just like a tree that sheds its leaves in the fall to prepare for winter, Ethan felt that solitude was helping him to leave behind the layers of his old self. Every painful memory, every limiting belief, and every fear he faced was slowly dissolving, making room for something new to grow. He remembered how he had arrived at that hut broken, lost, without direction. But now, as he reflected on his experiences, he saw that every moment of pain and loneliness had been like the fire that refines gold. Inner metamorphosis was not just a passive power. It was a conscious choice to embrace changes, even the most painful ones, as part of the process of evolution. While walking in the forest that day, he came across a butterfly. It was a perfect symbol of his journey. Just as she went through her cocoon, thought Ethan, I'm going through mine too. He knew that, like the butterfly, he would emerge from this phase stronger, freer, and more aligned with his purpose. This transformation wasn't just spiritual. He began to notice changes in his posture, in the way he spoke, and even in how he reacted to situations. Where before there had been insecurity, now there was confidence. Where there was once anger, there was now understanding. And most importantly, where there was once emptiness, there was now a deep sense of fullness. This inner metamorphosis also brought him the ability to adapt to any situation. He began to see every challenge as an opportunity to grow, every difficulty as a chance to reinvent himself. And this mindset, he knew, was one of the greatest gifts that solitude could offer. It was on a particularly silent night, when the only light came from the stars shining in the frosty sky, that Ethan experienced something that would change his life forever. He was sitting outside the cabin, with a blanket over his shoulders, when he felt a presence so strong that it seemed to envelop his entire being. It wasn't something he could see or touch, but it was unmistakable. He had achieved the ultimate gift, spiritual conquest. At that moment, Ethan realized that loneliness hadn't isolated him. It had connected him, not with other people or with the material world, but with the universe itself, with God, with a greater force that was present in everything. It was as if he had finally found the answer to all his questions. And the answer wasn't something that could be explained in words. It was something he felt deep in his soul. This spiritual connection brought a peace that he had never experienced before. All his worries, fears, and doubts disappeared, replaced by an absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He realized that he no longer had to fight against life's circumstances. Everything, from the happiest moments to the most challenging, was part of a bigger plan. Over the next few weeks, Ethan began to incorporate this spiritual conquest into every aspect of his life. He began to see every interaction, every choice, and every thought as an opportunity to express this divine connection. He began to pray not just with words, but with actions. Every small act of kindness, every gesture of compassion, became a form of worship and gratitude. This union with the divine also gave him a new purpose. He knew that he had gone through this journey not only for his own transformation, but to help others find the same path. Loneliness, he realized, was not a punishment, but a preparation for something much greater. He was ready to share his light with the world. When Ethan reflected on his journey, he realized that each of the 9 gifts he had discovered was an essential piece of a larger puzzle. They weren't just individual abilities, but parts of a whole, connected by a divine purpose. And he knew that this purpose was bigger than him. In sharing his story, Ethan left a powerful message. Loneliness is an invitation from the universe. Don't reject it, don't fear it. Embrace it as an opportunity for growth, transformation, and connection. It is in silence that you find your true voice. It is in solitude that you discover your strength. And it is in union with the divine that you find your purpose. If you identify with this journey, know that you too have these gifts within you. They are waiting to be awakened. Your transformation begins when you choose to embrace what once seemed daunting and see it as an opportunity to grow. And for those who wish to go even deeper into their spiritual journey, there is a special guide called The Chosen. This 40-day devotional is designed to help you explore your purpose and strengthen your connection with the divine. Each day offers reflections, verses, and practices that will help you align with your life's greater plan. Finally, let us know in the comments which of the 9 gifts resonated most with you. Share your experience and connect with other souls who are seeking growth and transformation. And of course, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving messages that inspire and transform. Your journey is just beginning, and together we can light each other's path.